Hello, everybody. Good to see you all here. We'll begin with the verse of the Kesa. Vast is the robe of liberation, a formless field of benefaction. I wear the Tathagata's teaching, freeing all creations. Vast is the robe of liberation, a formless field of benefaction. I wear the Tathagata's teaching, freeing all creations. Vast is the robe of liberation, a formless field of benefaction. I wear the Tathagata's teaching, freeing all creations. Gata of Atonement. All evil karma ever committed by me since of old, on account of my beginningless greed, anger, and ignorance, born of my body, mouth, and thought, now I atone for it all. All evil karma ever committed by me since of old, on account of my beginningless greed, anger, and ignorance, born of my body, mouth, and thought, now I atone for it all. All evil karma ever committed by me since of old, on account of my beginningless greed, anger, and ignorance, born of my body, mouth, and thought, now I atone for it all. Fragrance of this incense invites the waking mind to be present with us now. The fragrance of this incense fills our room, protects and guards our minds from wrong thinking. Fragrance of this incense unites us with precepts, concentration, and insight. We offer it for all beings. To walk around a dog to get between my chair and the altar. Lola has already taken up her spot. Homage to the Buddha. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. I go to the Buddha for guidance. I shall become one with the Buddha. I resolve that I shall each day follow the way of life he laid down for us to walk and awaken to his supreme wisdom. I go to the Dharma for guidance. I shall become one with the Dharma. The gates of Dharma are manifold. I vow to enter them all. The goal of wisdom is ever beyond. I shall attain it. I go to the Sangha for guidance. I shall become one with the Sangha. In the spirit of universal fellowship and as a member of the Sangha, I pledge myself to strive for the enlightenment of all beings. The Metta Sutta. This is what should be done by one who is skilled in goodness and who knows the path of peace. Let them be able and upright, straightforward and gentle in speech, humble and not conceited, contented and easily satisfied, unburdened with duties and frugal in their ways, peaceful and calm and wise and skillful, not proud and demanding in nature. Let them not do the slightest thing that the wise would later reprove. Wishing in gladness and in safety, may all beings be at ease. Whatever living beings there may be, whether they are weak or strong, omitting none, the great or the mighty, medium, short or small, the seen and the unseen, those living near and far away, those born and to be born, may all beings be at ease. Let none deceive another or despise any being in any state. Let none through anger or ill will wish harm upon another. Even as a mother protects with her life her child, her only child, so with a boundless heart should one cherish all living beings, radiating kindness over the entire world, spreading upward to the skies and downward to the depths, outward and unbounded, freed from hatred and ill will, whether standing or walking, sitting or lying down, free from drowsiness. One should sustain this recollection. This is said to be the sublime abiding. By not holding to fixed views, the pure-hearted one, having clarity of vision, being freed from all sense desires, is not born again into the world of suffering. May I be happy and well. May no harm come to me. May I learn compassion. May all my friends, family, and those I love be happy and well. May no harm come to them. May they learn compassion. May all those troubled in body, mind, and spirit be happy and well. May no harm come to them. May they learn compassion. May all those who have hurt me in body, mind, and spirit be happy and well. May no harm come to them. May they learn compassion. May all those I have hurt in body, mind, and spirit be happy and well. May no harm come to them. May they learn compassion. May all my enemies be happy and well. May no harm come to them. May they learn compassion. May all living beings be happy and well. May no harm come to them. May they learn compassion. The silent meditation tonight, 20 minutes, using Insight Timer if you're using a timer. If you prefer to mute the sound, we'll start right now. Buddha nature pervades the whole universe, existing right here now, and offering flowers, candles, and incense, hearing the Dharma and training the mind. Great merit is attained. We dedicate this merit to the great Master Shakyamuni Buddha, the all-pervading and everlasting three treasures, to the 16 guardians and all protectors of the Dharma and their relations throughout space and time, to all ancestors of this Sangha and all beings in the Dharma world. May penetrating light dispel the darkness of ignorance. Let all karma be resolved in the mind flower bloom in eternal spring. May the Dharma body maintain strength and health, and years of life be lengthened for all teachers of this Sangha. May the vows be fully realized, and may they live in perfect peace with Buddha Dharma. We pray for those suffering from violence and those who grieve for them, for those living in oppression, for all who are imprisoned who should be free, for all refugees from violence, hunger, and catastrophe, man-made or natural. We pray for the health and well-being of those suffering from diseases of body, mind, or spirit, those working toward the healing of those afflictions. May they be serene through all their troubles, and may we realize the enlightened way together. Sabe sata sadahantu avera sukajivino katang punya phalang mahang sabe bhagi bhavantu te. May all beings always live happily, free from animosity. May all share in the blessings that spring from the good we have done. I love it when it starts to rain, when we have thunderstorms while I'm meditating. There's just something about that I find so, I don't know, it's just extra calming. So I don't know whether you could hear it's probably raining where you are if you're watching live. If not, maybe you could hear it. It's really one of those nice thunderstorms. It's not like bad thunder, like Lola hadn't freaked out, and she's right here next to me. The thunder's really loud, kind of angry thunder, freaks her out. And it didn't do that. She's just kept sleeping. So I mentioned this book before. I think I mentioned it maybe last Wednesday. And I finished reading it. And there's some interesting practices in the back. There's some practices sort of meant to cultivate joy. So I'm going to have to give this, I'm going to probably read it again. And I'm going to give this some thought, It's not a technically Buddhist book by any means. The Dalai Lama is a Tibetan Buddhist, and Desmond Tutu is Christian. His Holiness and the Archbishop. So they're talking to a kind of general audience and kind of being inclusive about it, which I find kind of interesting. And there's a lot of overlap between their philosophies. In fact, they largely agreed on just about everything, which is something that I've always kind of found interesting. Whenever there are a lot of people of other religions, and Buddhists for that matter, with whom I would disagree on some pretty major points. And, I've worked with some people who have been traumatized by their religious upbringings, which is a really sad thing. And, there are people who practice religion in ways that I think are very destructive. But when I meet someone who is really, I don't think you have to practice any particular religion to be enlightened. I think that I've met people from many different backgrounds that I think have awakened to one extent or another, which, that's an interesting topic right there on its own. In fact, it's, I gave this series of talks couple of years ago, I guess it's been now, at White Sands about the Lotus Sutra. And I was reading the sutra, and hadn't really done any scholarship on the Lotus Sutra myself, but I was asked to give some talks about it. So, I was reading some commentaries from a couple of people as I was reading the sutra and preparing to talk about it. And one of the commentaries was Thich Nhat Hanh. And he was talking about something. There's all these descriptions of who's listening to the Buddha as he's giving this talks. And then there's references to beings and people and other beings, in this. And so, and they use some terms that are very, very Buddhist, traditional Buddhist terms. It's talking about these great beings that are assembled there, and the Pacceka Buddhas, and the Bodhisattvas, and the Arahants, and stuff. And Thich Nhat Hanh is kind of trying, he's doing this thing that he does, where kind of like with this book that I'm talking about with the Dalai Lama and the Archbishop. Where he kind of tries to put these things into a framework that will make sense to people who maybe aren't Buddhist. And I don't always agree with exactly the way he does it, but the concept was a good one. He's talking about these people as being, in terms of the kind of people who come to Buddhist practice and what they're hoping to get out of it, or what their objective is. And so, if you're into Zen, you try not to think in terms of objectives and what you hope to get out of that. The famous thing is, what do you hope to get out of this? What do you get out of practicing Buddhism? Nothing. But I get rid of a lot of stuff, So that's, but you get rid of it in order to experience something that's better than what you had from clinging to whatever it was that you got rid of, right? But anyway, he's talking about these people and the different levels of kind of objective, not just attainment, but objective to spiritual practice. And I have been kind of thinking about this a lot lately. There are people who really want to be bodhisattvas. I mean, they want to become enlightened. They want to become enlightened for the benefit of others, and they want to become Buddhas themselves so that they can free all other beings. And, but not many people walk in the door with that objective. Some people might walk in the door with the objective of being really very free from stress and suffering, to have real, serious peace of mind. And there are people who just want to deal with day-to-day stress a little bit better. Those are all legitimate reasons to practice. I would be wrong for me, I think, to say, well, if you're not practicing to become a Buddha, we just don't have any time for you. That would be stupid. Because a lot of people just, the idea of freeing all sentient beings, which we chant about doing, is really overwhelming to a lot of people. Hey, I'm just trying to get through the day, which again is a legitimate reason to practice spirituality. So they're talking about, in this book, they're talking about practicing at a realistic level. Not that any of these were not realistic, but at a level, of trying to live a really joyful life, which is different than just trying to, be less stressed today. It's like, if you figure you come into practice because you're constantly anxious about stuff and you're hoping Buddhism will help you, that's kind of down here, right? And if you're coming to practice because you want to live a really good, authentic, happy life in the sense of true happiness, that's kind of up here. And if you want to practice so that you become a Buddha and liberate everybody else, well, that's up here. Okay. And there's probably in-betweens. Well, I know there's in-betweens. So they're talking about this sort of middle level, developing a sort of resilient joyfulness about life and saying, you can do that. You don't have to be born into it. In fact, frequently they're telling each other that, they weren't always like this. And so kind of to sum it up, there's this statement where the Dalai Lama is talking, and he says, we must teach people the source of happiness and satisfaction. We must teach them that the ultimate source of happiness is within themselves, not machines, not technology, not money, not power. We're not talking about heaven or hell or Buddhahood or salvation. Those are too far away. So our book is part of this important process to help spread the message that love, kindness, and affection are the sources of true joy and happiness. So all you need is love. It goes into a little bit more detail than that. And so there's this interesting thing, like about half the book is dealing with what they call the 8 pillars of joy. So again, before I talked about this a whole lot, I'd want to give some more thought to like, what do they mean when they say joy, and how does it equate to what I mean when I say joy or happiness, or what the Buddha meant when he said piti, bliss, or that kind of stuff. But there's some real interesting parallels here between, which there should be, because one of the guys writing this book is the most famous and possibly the most advanced Buddhist in the world. There's a lot of overlap between what they're teaching here and what the Buddha taught. And so an interesting thing is this, where they talk about the 8 pillars of joy. So I'm going to talk about them a little bit, just in brief. I may decide to come back and go into these in more depth individually over time. But it's very cool the way this coincides with stuff that, I teach all the time, I talk about all the time, you read about all the time, I'm sure. And just put it in this perspective. So here's the 8 pillars of joy. First one is perspective. Speaking of perspectives, perspective. So in the subtitle is, there are many different angles. So I don't remember exactly what they said about this, but when I look at this, I think in terms of a couple of things that, like Greg Creech says, that life is a matter of attention. And it's something that I've repeated a lot. If your experience of life, whether it's good or bad, pleasant or unpleasant, has relatively little to do with your circumstances, has a great deal to do with where you put your attention, how you pay attention, what are you paying attention to. And so that's perspective. What am I looking at? Another one that Greg uses is examine life outside the boundaries of your suffering. So, okay, you're suffering. What else is going on? What's going on outside of there? It's one that I've used a lot in the last few weeks because I've been through some kind of stressful situations at work, and it's easy to kind of get sucked into these things. And then so pause and look around and go, okay, well, how am I being supported too? What good stuff is going on out there, so that you're not just dominated by the stressful things that you're experiencing. Not that they're not important, not that they're not real. I mean, we can go into that, but that there are other things happening too. So you get these things into the proper balance, proper perspective. Second one is humility. Humility is not one of the 7 factors of enlightenment. It's not one of the 5 spiritual powers or anything. It is discussed in Buddhism as being important. And humility, but it's one of those words that, by the time it comes from the Pali or Sanskrit, it could be translated other ways. But think about not not getting hung up on self-aggrandizement. It sort of relates to this idea that I've talked about with self-esteem, is that if you can see yourself clearly relative to others, then it's really beneficial to you. If you're really hung up on this idea that I got to be better than everybody else, that leads to a lot of suffering. So a lot of the time we think humility, being humble, is not, that's putting ourselves down, but it's really not. It's putting ourselves into, as the first one is, into perspective. Who am I? Where do I need to go from here? And how important are my needs relative to everybody else's needs? So it also relates very much to the teaching of not self. If I don't have a self, then what am I rating? What is so wonderful about me? Humor. And it's another one that I'm reading this and I'm going, yeah, I think humor is really important. It's not, again, one of the 7 factors of enlightenment. It's not, one of the five bala, spiritual powers, or anything like that. But and I think, we tend to, you'll read about what Buddhism is, and, the first noble truth is birth is suffering, death is suffering, illness is suffering, old age is suffering, being separated from what you want is suffering, being in situations you don't want is suffering, the 5 clinging aggregates are suffering. Oh my God. But really, when you look at it, people who practice Buddhism, who are really advanced at it, laugh a lot. So why is this? And I think part of it is that they practice laughing a lot. And when you, it sort of comes with humility too. When you can see yourself clearly, you can see when you screw up, and it really is kind of funny. Also, gosh, spiritual teachings can be so heavy. I had a mentor once upon a time, long time ago. He was a psychologist, and he would say, life is too serious to take too seriously. It's a way to not get hung up in the, in attachment to how you're feeling about certain things. You can laugh at what's going on. That does a lot to de-empower. Probably not a word, but, it's good enough, to take a lot of the power of a situation. Well, the first time I talked to there was one of the UU churches, I can't remember for sure which one it is now, that I had reached out to when I finished up the Bright Dawn program. And I was just kind of sending letters to Unitarian Universalist churches saying, hey, you want a Buddhist to come talk to you? I'm here, And so one of them called me out. And so my bio used to have all the stuff in it that I thought it needed to have. My dharma names, and at the time, some stuff in Pali and a Japanese dharma name, and I'd gone to this, Wat Florida Dhammaram, and all this kind of stuff. So I had all these different letters, like 5 different languages in my bio. And so the poor woman who was introducing me is really stumbling over this. And I was feeling really bad for her. So one of the things that I'd said was that I had ordained in the Thai order at Wat Florida Dhammaram in Kissimmee. And so when I got up to speak, she looked at me, she's very apologetic. And she goes, I'm so sorry. I know I mispronounced so much. And I said, you did great. Most people mispronounce Kissimmee, which, if you're from Central Florida, is funny. If you're watching this and you're from pretty much anywhere but Central Florida, you have no idea why that's funny, but it's funny if you're from Central Florida. And so, I got a big laugh. And so, it kind of broke the ice, and there were a few other moments of levity in my talk. I don't remember what I talked about. But when I got through, somebody comes up to me and goes, oh, that was very interesting. And she goes, but I didn't expect you to have a sense of humor. And, so I kind of kept that in mind. It's like, if, if we can laugh at ourselves a little bit, it makes it a lot easier to sort of understand the truth about ourselves. So the fourth one is acceptance. We talk a lot about equanimity. Equanimity really comes about from accepting things as they are. And I'm not going to talk about that much more because it really is a Dharma talk or 5 in that topic. But the place where we can change is from where we are now. We got to accept our circumstances, accept who we are and where we are. And then we can, and when we can be realistic about what's going on, then we can go somewhere. The fifth one is forgiveness, which they describe as freeing ourselves from the past. Forgiveness is a very complex thing. It sounds easy. It sounds like, oh, it's just one thing, but it's actually fairly complicated. And, there's a Dharma talk in that. And I get Dharma talks about that once in a while. But we don't benefit at all from carrying around resentment. We also don't benefit from, putting ourselves in a position to be victimized by someone over and over again. But it doesn't do us any good to carry around hatred. And gratitude, God, I talk about gratitude frequently. And it is such an important thing. And the Buddha talked about it too. If you can't feel grateful, if you can't have gratitude, it's very difficult to make any progress with your spiritual life. Compassion is the 7th pillar. And, the Dalai Lama is famous for saying, my religion is compassion. I think every religion values compassion. I think the more we can truly practice compassion, the better off we're going to be as society. If we can't do that, well, we've seen the effects of some of that. September 11th is coming up in a couple of days. Just think about the harm that happened there, and much of it related to not understanding, not seeing the suffering of others. And the last one is generosity, which was actually the first of the principles that the Buddha would teach. Somebody came in and said, I want to be a Buddhist. I want to practice your teaching. Where do I start? It always started with dana, D-A-N-A, dana, generosity. If you can't let go of stuff, back to what I was saying earlier, what do you hope to get out of this? I just hope to get rid of a lot. You can't let go of stuff, then it's very difficult to develop. And so, and we find that the more generous we are, the wealthier we feel as practitioners. So anyway, like I said, maybe I'll come back to some of these and go into individual ones in a little bit more depth. But I encourage you to read the book if you're interested in reading this spiritual literature. This one's well worth it, and it's a fun read too. It's not real heavy going. So anyway, that's all I have for you tonight. Are there questions or comments? Anything you'd like me to comment upon? Well, thank you all very much for being here. Hope to see you in the Zoom room tomorrow, or at White Sands Sunday, or back here next Wednesday. In the meantime, take care of yourself and have a good evening. Yeah, Ellen, I know you would like this book. It's a fun read. I don't think it's out in paper yet. I was actually reading it with the library copy through Libby, but and then somebody gave me a colleague at work gave me a copy of it, the hardcover. Hardcover is $28 maybe. Anyway, it's maybe wait for it on paper, but it's a good book. All right. Thank you all for being here. I'll see you again soon. Oh, cool. Good. Are you enjoying it? I'm going to assume you are. There's a huge lag between the time I see what you say and respond to it, and you can respond to me. It's about 2 minutes probably. So anyway, you're welcome, Nina. Thank you for being here. All right, y'all. Have a good night. Stay dry.